Hello, I want to welcome everybody to the live report. Once again, these interviews are educational tools to provide service learning projects and understanding of some of the things that are going on in the world today. We're very excited to have a special guest, Coach Josh Rogers, who's an educator, as well as a principal at a school that in this time, in this pandemic, is actually has kids in the building and has built a behavioral program designed to support some of you. This interview is just actually for anyone who's out there that has fears about coming back into the building. We're going to talk about some online learning things, some of the things we've tried. We're a non-traditional school, so we're a charter. I was able to team up with this organization. We were able to team up with this organization through Minority Behavioral Health Group. Started out as a caseworker, working with them, trying to understand how mental health and education comes together. He works with 90 to 95% poverty, students of poverty. Many of them are students of color. At their school, they have a number of Arab students as well as Latino students, and it's a great opportunity for us to chat with somebody who's on the front lines as far as this COVID thing is concerned. Coach Rogers, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, Coach Bentley. Just another fun week of staying in the building. We're lucky to be one of the few schools that are able to give our parents the opportunity to have 5 days a week in building education. And I know we've been talking a lot about, how difficult that's been. Uh, just looking up some stats to get ready for, this hard hitting reporting from Coach Bentley over here. Uh, One of the things I was interested in is just how frequent and what kind of opportunities are out there. There's only 35% of schools in the United States that are offering 5 days a week in building learning. 38% of them are only virtual, and about 26% of them offer some type of hybrid. And I know in our neck of the woods, there's some of the larger local districts are sticking to virtual, mostly virtual. Some are doing a little bit of hybrid, but virtual seems to be the flavor of choice going on with some of the larger districts, just because I'm sure dealing with so many, the teacher populations, the unions, the needs and the concerns of all the students and families, it's tough to juggle all of it.
So like, are there certain age groups that like lean towards going to school, or there's certain age groups that are saying, look, I want to be just virtual, or I just want to be online, or are there like, is there a status that says, all right, you know, our elders, do elders want to go in the building? Some of the schools have volunteers that want to come in. Is there any design like that to like, who's really pushing for being in school or online only?
Now, some of the research I did was looking at there's a COVID dashboard. I found that through NPR. They had gone and interviewed and reached out, and they had a bunch of different schools surveyed about 200,000 students that they reached out to and families. They were talking a lot about how, and the survey was done at the end of July. So I know for us personally in our school, at the end of July, we're still waiting to hear what the state's going to say. So it's really hard to kind of nail down some of those details. But remote learning, surprisingly, at least to me, the majority of teachers that wanted to do remote learning were in the ages between 18 and 34. And that was about 74% wanted to do all remote. When you get to 35 to 55, that's 62%. 55 plus, that's 58% wanted to do just strictly virtual.
Wow.
It's kind of surprising because you think those are the more at risk, but I also think those are the kind of teachers that, they realize the importance of in-building education too. The longer you've been in the business, the more it's a life or death kind of situation, getting these kids in school and getting them educated and getting them out of possibly some more dangerous or unsafe environments.
So through this process, I saw you work over the summer. Glad to be on the team, man. You guys did a great job, man. I believe your team actually fed, and I'm a part of the team, but you guys are the major portion. I know I deal and support with a lot of mental health and behavior side of what you're doing, but you guys brought in food over the summertime, right? Still provided lunches, still provided technology over the summer. How well do you think your parents are prepared now versus those parents that weren't participating in such a process? Because I saw it work. So
I mean, we're lucky that at least Ohio Department of Education offered a lot of different summer programs where the schools would be reimbursed for any kind of food that they deliver or pass out throughout the summer and throughout COVID and everything like that. We were just lucky that we have, and what I think is the most important is communication between staff, students, and parents. Our staff did a phenomenal job of being the arrow that led the charge for communicating with the parents, making sure they touched base. Yeah, at the beginning of COVID, we wanted them to still try to end that last quarter. I mean, there's only so much learning that's going to happen when, on a Thursday, all of a sudden you get sent home and say, hey, here's this packet of work. Hey, you can come to get a computer. There's not much learning that can happen. For some of our parents, they can't find a ride. They can't get daycare. They can't get someone to watch their kids. They can't get someone to sit down and help their kids with their learning. So us being able to reach out, let them know that we're here for them, whether it's school related, whether it's you need clothing, whether you need some type of donation, you need gas cards, you need some food, anything like that. We were able to, luckily through our staff, figure out who were the most needy, who needed help, and we were able to at least have a haven or a place they could come to get some of those supports that they're looking for.
do you think there's like a disparity between and working close with you, and I just want to know from your perspective, a disparity between those individuals, say internet access, or because we're working with high poverty and we got to talk about institutional racism as well. It's highlighted in what we're trying to do, and firsthand. Do you think there's a disparity between grandparents or a learning curve in which individuals can actually say, I can get online and do this? And then I've met people that we all graduated together and they can't even handle the online learning process. I'm just asking, is there a disparity between the educational process as far as those who have access to the internet, know how to navigate through? Because I know, as far as you've told me and I've seen, as far as being able to go out and support some of these people as far as the mental health side, because we had you guys, I should say, had a program in which you had online training to where the kids had computer technology classes and they knew how to log in and navigate. Do you think there's a disparity on individuals that have that access? And do you think they should bring back programming like computer technology in these schools to where they know how to navigate? What do you think about that?
Well, to answer the first part of your question about access to the internet, I think right when this happened, at least the state of Ohio really did a great job. And I don't know if it was the state of Ohio kind of pushing this, but I know Spectrum, AT&T, Sprint, a lot of these different organizations offered free internet use to a lot of our families. Because whenever there was an issue with, oh, how does this happen? We were able to give them a number. We were able to talk them through the process of how to be able to access some of those free programs to be able to get internet. Now, going into a new school year, it's gotten a little more complicated. Yes, we want to try to find ways to offer it to them, but with what's out there, it's really difficult to. I know we worked really hard to get a grant that would offer us a bunch of hotspots that we could provide our families to. And the grant said, hey, this is for up to the end of the year, December 31st, we're going to be able to offer X amount of dollars, things like that. So we had a plan where we were going to try to purchase about 100 different hotspots and pay for the entirety of their service up for the rest of the school year, so our parents would be able to access internet. But depending on, I don't know how to really say this in nice terms, but the grant was kind of it was fool's gold. The nicest way I could say it. Yeah, it was because they said, oh, hey, we can give you these hotspots, which were already provided to us for free. you had to pay for was the subscription for internet. They're like, well, we can give it to you to December 31st, but you can't prepay. We're like, what good is 2 months of internet going to do for our parents? That's not even like 3-4 weeks into a new quarter. It's not going to do them any good. And then it's going to be about as useful as a brick. And it's going to cost our school tens of thousands of dollars to provide 100 different families with internet and things like that. And a lot of the COVID money, the CARES Act, all that money was up to December 31st. A lot of it didn't let you prepay for so many things. Luckily, we were able to find some different programs that would let us do some different things like that. But I mean, it's been a lot of juggling funds because I know it's just been hard for a lot of kids to come to school. It's been hard for, just the fear alone is going to make it hard. What was the second part of the question you're asking?
We both got attention deficit, man. I think
I know. I got it. We were talking about how people felt prepared for the school year coming back in. I gotta look through all my little stats here. There was something about staff feeling prepared coming back to start the new year.
Yeah.
And, I want to say the top percentage, like I feel 100% ready to teach either online, in building. There's only 9% of teachers at the end of July. And that's from every district all over the world that they were interviewing, everything like that. I mean, the fact that only maybe 1 out of 10 teachers felt ready to teach, that means they haven't had the right kind of training, the right kind of tools. I mean, we took a week off and tried to do some online Google training, Google Meet training, all those kind of things.
Right.
I mean, clearly you needed a little more Zoom training trying to get this all set up. But
yeah,
I mean,
you saw me hit, man.
You know how it is. It's technology. Certain parts of technology are easy for some and hard for others.
The troubleshooting portion.
I mean, we have students in our class who can find 8 ways to get around our firewall to be able to play their games or look up whatever they want to look up at school. And it takes them 45 minutes to send me an email to my name, and I write it up on the board. So it just depends what you're used to. I mean, it depends what kind of knowledge you're using in your everyday. A lot of our students use technology through their phone or through a tablet. They're not used to having that Google Classroom, Google things like that. A lot of schools and a lot of classes, they use Google Classroom as like a tool that they could project on the screen and they could click through it. It wasn't always a manipulative for the students to sit down and go through. So I think it doesn't matter what school. My wife's school, which is a predominantly white school outside of Youngstown, very small district, their students, their staff, when it came time for COVID, they didn't even have expectations set. They said, oh, you're going online? All right, make sure those kids are getting taught. You can either do packets or you can do whatever you want. There's no expectation of meeting online. There was only like twice at the end of the year where they'd have to go pick up their packets. It's just kind of difficult when you have, the expectations, they're hard to set.
Yeah.
Because the state doesn't know what they want to do. They don't know how they're going to make it fair and equitable for everybody. And like you said, these large districts, I mean, how do you mark attendance? How do you mark attendance for a large district? For a charter school, a small charter school like ourselves, we have a lot of hoops to jump through because a lot of funding that goes to some of the bigger districts, it's not always easy to get when you're a small charter school. They want to make it a little more difficult because, frankly, a lot of places and a lot of other charter schools have taken advantage of it.
I think that being a prototype, man, just watching you guys work and just being a prototype for what's going to take place, and those of individuals that are listening on the airwaves, and you shared a lot of valuable information, may be able to pick up on this. And hold on one second. It's picking up. Yeah. So I think it's very valuable what you're saying and how we can still grow. What moves should they make now? I know Akron Public had a meeting. They are talking about maybe postponing. And then we took a class, I think, together, just trying to build. They showed different models. They had these different hybrid models, right? What do you think is best right now? So from my point of view is this: if you have a facility that's open and you go through the process of opening with all the safety measures that the CDC has, you can open up. Just from watching your team, and being a part of that team, just in the background, dealing with behaviors. But as far as the COVID side of what you guys did, marking the floors, making sure everything is wiped down every 2 hours. Do you believe that coming back to school should be for a certain group of people that may be struggling, or for everybody? Who should be in the building?
I mean, I don't think there's a one size fits all answer. I mean, you have to look at health concern of the kids. You have to look at what some of the parents feel comfortable with. You got to look at what the district's able to do. I mean, just according to some of that COVID dashboard, you look at just being able to have kids stay in a room. Out of all the schools that are open, only 50% are able to keep their kids in a room the entire day. We don't have our kids transition. We don't have them go room to room. We have our teachers transition. So just being able to do that, you look at some of these large high schools, they can't have kids stay in a room. I mean, they got a Spanish teacher, their chem teacher, they have everybody all over the building. So that's difficult to do. Only 50% of schools are doing symptom checks. Only 57% of schools are keeping kids 6 feet apart. You have, now luckily, it's about 92% of schools that make students wear masks, 95% of schools that make staff wear masks. I can't believe anywhere lets you not have a mask, but I mean, that's not here nor there.
Well, that's because COVID's not real. It's we're turning the curve. We're turning the street.
Oh, geez.
I ain't gonna go around in the corner. I'm just kidding.
I mean, looking at all the data to get ready for this, and just honestly to get ready to talk to these parents about bringing their kids back to school for this second quarter, there's not solid stats that say that opening up school is a super spreader event or a super spreader kind of scenario, because it's an area where if they're taking the right precautions, if they're doing all the things they're supposed to, in our school, our kids wear masks like this all day. They cover up their face. They don't know how to cover up their nose. They don't know how to wear masks correctly. I mean, that's a whole other part of educating them about what to do. So being able to make all these kids follow all these rules, there's no proof that it makes it any harder for them to spread the coronavirus. But you see the majority of these happens at, some kind of political rally that might have a large gathering.
A funeral, a wedding.
Weddings are huge. I know 2 weddings that have happened that I know of recently in the last month, where the bride got coronavirus, the mother got it, the daughter of the sister of the bride got it. I can't imagine who else got it. That's just the immediate family. Down in my wife's community, they had a wedding. There was about 150 people there. The father of the bride and 50 of his employees got COVID-19.
So, and this is not just subjected to African Americans. It's just not subjected to Latinos or Arabs or Indians or Chinese, right? This thing has no order. He doesn't care. He just wants to eat who he eats.
Well, and I'd say one of the biggest spreads out in California early on was happening in the Latino community, because they had a really hard time being able to contact trace, because who's going to want to answer that phone? Who wants to answer to a government organization? Who wants to go and say where they've been, who they've been around, all those kind of things? At one point, it was just being afraid of Big Brother looking over you, knowing everything you're doing, knowing everyone who you're around can get you in trouble. Or, you want to take care of yourself. You don't want to put your business out there. So that makes it hard to figure out who's spreading it, who's not. And that's one of the reasons why early on, people felt like this was a more of a minority type of disease that would be spread easily. It's a disease or a virus that gets spread because people aren't taking the right precautions and being safe for themselves.
And what does that sound like historically when we were growing up? HIV, right? And then they say
educated about it.
Only in a certain population, it's only in the gay community, it's here, it's there. And can you imagine being the president when something like that is spreading? And it's been here already, in which I believe that COVID was already here. It just showed up uniquely when they started reviewing like what's happening to these individuals. I think COVID had already been here to me.
Well, the person who's in charge of the pandemic response is the person who's responsible for the largest spread of HIV in his state's history when he was the governor of Indiana. So I can't really say that we really have the best people in place to really kind of prevent some of these things. And not being political at all about it, if you're not prepared for it, if you have your teacher saying they don't feel comfortable teaching a certain way, you get over half the teaching population, up to 75% of your teaching population saying they don't feel comfortable being in a classroom doing these kind of things. It's about educating everybody. It's about showing them what's safe, what's not safe. And when you say there's nothing wrong and people are dying, it's not going to make people feel comfortable.
Right, right. So as far as behaviors, so imagine, okay, across the country, and you bring kids back into the school building. Then you have discipline issues where we handle a lot of discipline and we handle a lot of mental health issues.
Our kids are angels. I don't know what you're talking about. All the time.
How does that look? And you guys teamed up with was it Scott Irvin?
Irvin, yeah.
Scott Irvin. And he has an idea where he's honed in on this idea of the love and logic idea that you've actually brought into the organization, where, you know, I get to go in and I get to watch you guys work. The love and logic idea is looking at kids from a strengths perspective, which I like, and then making sure consistently, because you're working with this 90% poverty, almost 90 to 95% African-American population, who's experienced these traumas, these adverse experiences. And we'll talk about ACEs on our next, our ACE scores on our next show. I hope to get Dr. Lodge on here. But there's adverse traumas and experiences that our kids have experienced that will cause a reaction to another reaction. And now we're saying that we need to talk to these kids. We need to build them up. We need to change the formula and the science and the chemicals in their mind. Can you kind of reach out about how discipline looks now during COVID? You have kids in the building. What are some of those things, and kind of play upon what Irvin has been doing and how that might just help?
Well, first, I think it's really important to know that being in the building is the only way the kids are going to learn positive behaviors, learn these kind of discipline, learn these kind of things. Because even my daughter, when she's at home, she doesn't have to sit properly. She doesn't always have to say please and thank. I mean, there are things that we try to teach her, but being at school, being able to socialize with her peers, that's how you're going to learn best. So first, being in the building, I think the reason you have these groups, like in Shaker Heights right now, there's a big group trying to get their schools to open their doors because they want their students to be able to be in school, to get that social emotional learning, because that's how you're able to affect and positively change behaviors. So when they're in our building right now, for this first quarter, it's been running about as smooth as it ever has. I mean, there's certain aspects, of course, that are always going to be difficult. There's going to be certain traumas that a kid comes in with where doing all the things we're doing is going to be difficult for them, but everything's almost hyper structured right now. You're standing on this dot, there's another dot, there's when usually it's like, oh, please God, just stand in a line. Oh, thank you, you're standing next to someone, it's a miracle. Now they have dots they have to stand on. They have masks they have to wear. There's so much more structure to it that I know we've talked. There's some parts of it that we think are going to be really helpful to keeping our students have, that focus, a little more structure. It's kind of helping them out a little bit. There's not those transition times where they tend to get in trouble. Now with the love and logic model, that's all about the neurochemistry of our students, because whenever they come in from an environment where there is trauma, where they're coming in with ACEs and they're at a high cortisol level in their head, they come into school, they get the first person who's talking to them as a bus driver, yelling at them to put on a mask, things like that. They're going to come in pissed off. That's about as simple as it's going to be. So the first thing we're doing is the second they get off a bus, they get a positive notice. And it's a notice. It's not always dependent on the kid. It's not always a, hey, and notice you got the right shoes on. Notice you're Notice you got your book bag on. Notice you got your mask on. Notice you're walking in line the right way. Because if you look at them and say, oh, I really like your shoes, and this kid just got whooped because he didn't have his shoes tied, he's going to be pissed off you said something about his shoes. So it's very specific about not pointing out and being too specific to the student about something that might set them off. It's just
Right.
nice and simple, but it's doing it 100 million times a day. We have it set up that every kid, by the time they walk into our building till they get in the classroom, they're going to pass at least 4 people who can positively notice them. And doing that kind of thing, it's just like in the old saying, whenever it came to our old PBIS training, it always said you got to get 5 positives to 1 correction. And every time I always taught that my first year as an assistant principal, I was like, well, how the hell are you even going to talk to this kid 5 times before you say it's going to be a kid who keeps like breaking his pencil, tapping a pencil, and you would just want to say, stop it. What are you doing? Sit down. Stop doing this. I mean, that's how we're going to college. I guess it was a long time ago, but we don't really know. Going to college, there was no how to properly discipline kids. It was, you tell them to sit down. Oh, we talk about PBIS. You're like, oh, hey, if they do good, you give them a ticket and then they can get prizes at the end of the week.
Hey, could you I'm sorry, could you give PBIS, and could you kind of tell maybe some parents might be watching this, the acronym PBIS, could you kind of tell them what that means?
It's just a behavioral system where you're trying to be positive for the student. It's always trying to have that positive spin for the students. It's trying to always, say something positive to them, give them a positive reward. It's promoting the positive behaviors. Oh, hey, I noticed you're sitting. Here you go. Here's a ticket. Oh, it's usually a lot of the time a token economy, which means you give them something for doing the right thing or doing something they're supposed to. We're trying to go a little bit away from that and kind of promote when they do something above and beyond. We're trying to give them extra jobs in the classroom. We're trying to give them some more real life kind of opportunities, because when a kid walks down the street and doesn't yell curse words at their neighbor, they're not going to get a golden ticket from their mom and dad when they get home. But when someone walks by the street and someone has mess in their front yard and you clean it up, if I'm a parent and I see my kid do that, that's when I'm going to congratulate them because they went above and beyond. I mean, some of that I think is a little important too. And
And you've had some lately, you've had some very tough situations where you got kids coming back into the building after experiencing some major traumas. And I think how we highlighted that, when we talked about, and this certain individuals will come in, I think it was very important to build them up like that. And then when you deal with Afrocentric thought and Afrocentric psychology, it's important to look at things from a strengths perspective, not a deficit perspective.
absolutely.
If you look at everything from a deficit, like, oh, this kid is not listening to me, I need him out of here. Well, if this kid is not listening to me, what may have happened and how can I communicate? It makes a big difference. I love what you guys are doing. I'm so glad I teamed up with you at this period because, like I told you, I teamed up with you guys to learn how to run our organization. Lava Athletics stands for Learning Abilities for Victory and Achievement. And when I started, I gave you the outline of what we were trying to do. I came through minority behavioral health, and that merged between the mental health side and the educational side. Now we're looking at the MTSS, the multi-tiered system, right? So then in this multi-tiered system, we're looking at a student either educationally, and it looks like a pyramid.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a pyramid.
Looks like that lava sign you got behind you right over there.
Oh yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So at the top is a small percentage of individuals who actually fall into they're not doing the right thing. But at the base in your school, in your educational system, it could be your business. You want a majority of the people doing the right things. And if then we identify after you see a majority of the people doing the right things, okay, now what interventions, if we find people doing the wrong things, can we do? Then after that, you have the top tier individuals, whether scholastically or behaviorally, that they're the 1 to 3% of individuals that they need outline support. They might need mental health services. They might need diagnoses. But other than that, when they're in the middle, we're trying to bring them back down to the base where it's the majority of individuals doing what they're supposed to do. How do you think, how do you like the multi-tier system? Do you think it's effective?
Well, I remember when we first were talking about the multi-tier system, and they said the very peak of it's your worst of your worst cases, and everybody gets, all educators get in their mind, oh, you know what, this one's tough, this one's tough. They just have a tough time doing this, that, and another. And they say it's only supposed to be about what, 1 to 3% of your student population. You're like, time for me to refocus about what's a big deal, what's just, needs a little kind of intervention. Um, I want to say the bottom tier is supposed to be what, 85% of your student population? So it really helped us get a lot more focused on what's happening with our students. Um, Now, I know we're a small district, so it's a little bit harder. We don't always have the ability of being able to pull the 10 to 12 people that would probably be in this process to really break it down. But I know it would be yourself, master of discipline at our school. You'd have the school psych, the special ed director. We try to get at least 1 or 2 teachers, at least to either give us notes about some of the situations. We'd use all of our um, really good, recommendations or discipline letters that some of the kids got, and we would just use that as information more than we would use our write-ups or different things like that to say, oh, you got a write-up today, you're in trouble. No, we take that and be like, what time did this happen? It happened at this time. Okay, and we'd have a whole team break down all the write-ups this student might have gotten, and they might have gotten it. Oh, it happens at math time. Oh, it happens at math time. Oh, it happens at math time. What's this kid's math score? Oh, so this isn't so much of a discipline problem. This might be we need to move him over to the MTSS process or a tier 1 or tier 2 student for math. It might have just been an academic problem. So they really go hand in hand, because a lot of our discipline issues might result in a educational or academic deficit, and vice versa. If a kid's really smart, guess what? They sure don't want to sit there and listen to their friends talk about something they've been doing for 3 months. They're going to act up. They're going to cut up. They're going to do something like that. So they really do go hand in hand. And it's a process of using that information in communication. I know we were talking about love and logic, and we're trying to kind of veer away from some of the referrals and different learning opportunity kind of things, because we really just want we really want to help our teachers out so they're not suffocating in this time of COVID with more paperwork. But like we were just talking, it's important, at least if we're not getting that, we got to get some kind of communication of
Yeah.
some kind of problems, so we can sit down, we can break it down, and it gives us a game plan. It gives us that playbook of what we got to do to be successful for us.
Yeah, yeah, because you watch film before you play a game, and this is all about sports. You other teams send you the film, so the teacher is sending you this layout of these behaviors, not to penalize the kid or support the structure, the prison system, which we're fighting against. And we know that together. We don't want these kids to leave us and end up in environments or making decisions that they went through our fingertips and they fell off. What would you say to the world today, as far as we always close out like this, because what is your message, coach, to the world today, man? What would you say if you had a couple bars, like if you was a rapper? If you had a couple bars to get
bars you were talking about for a minute.
if you had a couple bars, man, what would you tell the world today, my brother?
No, everybody's so decisive. Everyone thinks they're right. Nobody ever wants to think they're wrong. And the only thing we can do to kind of get everybody back on the same page, get everybody loving each other is to communicate. Once we communicate with each other, we figure out what we like, what we don't like. We figure out a way to communicate, to love each other again. We need to bring everybody together. And I think this summer's been a perfect example. Everybody's had to be separated. There's been racial tension for 500 million things. Every single night you turn on the TV, you see something ridiculous happen in society. It's because people can't get over their differences. People can't communicate. People can't love each other. And that's what we need to get back to.
All right, man. Look, Coach, thank you so much for your time. I know you got to get to your family. Give my little niece a hug, man.
All right, I'll tell
Hey,
Lily.
hey, what'd she say? Am I black, daddy? Or am I white?
That was when she thought God was a black woman, and she's mad that these police officers are talking to him like that. Although she had, when she was at my parents' house, this black police officer pulled over and gave her a sticker and an ice cream coupon. And she said, "Are you one of them good policemen or them bad policemen?" She said, "I'm a good policeman." That night she came and said, "I got to be a good policeman for Halloween." So she's getting back from dance wearing her good policeman Halloween costume.
Yeah, rebuilding the trust, man. That's what we need, right?
Yep. Girl dad right here.
Real
Watch out.
dad, man. Yeah.
All right,
Hey,
man.
love you, brother. Hey, I'll
All right,
see
later,
you.
brother.
Yeah.
See ya. All right, see you, Coach.
Peace.